Hi guys, today we are going to recap an anime series titled Death March to the Parallel World Rap City. The story focuses on a series of events that happened when a programmer and loser in his late 20s, Ichiro Suzuki, suddenly gets transported into the RPG world fantasy game he was creating, which was also mashed up with the games he was developing in the real world. In this new world, Suzuki looks much younger. And Ajal also, his name changes from Suzukito Satu, and he realizes that he now has magical abilities that he can only think of upon getting to the new world. Sachi faces a whole lot of drama and surprises on his way to clearing out the game world and returning to his world, and you can find out other things that happen on his journey if you follow along with the video, subscribe and like the video. Enjoy the recap. In the bright and busy city of Tokyo, Ichiro Suzuki gets to the buzzy Tokyo subway by 8:30 a.m. to make it to the 8:33 a.m. train. Without being late at all on getting there, he realizes that the train is already there and is about to leave him behind. Suzuki ran as hard as he could to get onto the train on time. Thankfully, his loser ass gets there on time and he manages to save himself the embarrassment of getting late to work. As he breathes his lungs back into existence, he searches his emptiness to discover why the train system was so different that day. Then it clicks in his mind and he realizes that he is going to work on a Sunday. That's why the train schedule was different today anyways. Suzuki gets into his work mode and arrives at work on time while riding the elevator. His colleagues join him and discuss a few things with Suzuki. From the looks of things, Suzuki was there to clean up some idiot's mess, who quit his job before finishing the sad game design. He made Suzuki was a nice guy who liked cleaning other people's messes, even to his detriment. So this was a walk in the park plus. He had no girlfriend, which kind of adds some context to the fact that nice guys always finish last. Anyways, Suzuki gets to his floor in one piece and walks to his cubicle to start what he calls the Death March. Suzuki starts his busy Sunday at work, writing classes and comments before he generates documentation and all from the source code of whatever program he works on. While at it, he spots one of his colleagues complaining about his work and feels obliged to help him. Thankfully, his fate and annoying supervisor came by to dump more work on him this time. He was there to tell Suzuki to reduce the difficulty of the new game they were developing titled Warworld. Suzuki argued that they originally said the game was going to be quite challenging for beginners, so why are they going back on their word now? The supervisor wasn't there to listen to what the small fry had to say, so he told him to get the job done and leave. Shortly, Suzuki makes a few comments about the games to make it easier, and the fat supervisor urges him to keep up the good work before he goes far. Suzuki calls him back and tells him about the bug fixes he has to do on that MMORPG before he starts their project. The fat guy promises to call the client first before they can make any decisions. With that, Suzuki has little free time, so he spends it outside having some delicious bento for lunch. While he's at it, he spots a little girl crying on the concrete in front of him. Out of concern, he quickly crosses over to the girl's side, completely abandoning his bento box to check out what she has to say, since he couldn't understand toddler language. Suzuki decided to take her to the police station and hopefully find her mother there. He makes the arrangements and gets himself ready to take her to the police station. But then the girl's mother shows up and takes her daughter back inside. Thankfully, the woman was smart enough not to think of Suzuki as a predator, so she thanked him for the help and went on her way. Suzuki smiles at the wonderful mother and her daughter before returning to his office to complete his job by nightfall. He finishes debugging the annoying game. He runs the program to test it out and logs in with his ID to test the performance of the game. Just then, one nosy colleague, who is also the last person to leave the office, waves Suzuki goodbye and complains about his wife being angry at him for not coming home for 3 days straight. Suzuki deems him lucky to have someone that can be pissed at him for not coming home rather than take the compliment and go. The man decides to hit Suzuki where it hurts by telling him to get a girlfriend before he turns 40. Suzuki takes the burn like a champ loser and continues running the program. He thinks about having a girlfriend as being Very unrealistic given the type of job he has at the moment. Suzuki ends his night without sleeping at all, and on the next day he washes his face and continues working. He finishes his program very soon and decides to send just an email so he can get back home to enjoy himself. That instant, another one of his colleagues complains again about the item duplication bug in the War World game and tells him that it's quite different from the previous bug he had to fix. As expected, nice Suzuki accepts the job and gets on with it soon. His fat boss sends another email begging Suzuki to clean up another one of his messes. Suzuki also gets on with that and finishes everything. Bye 3-1 CUA. That night, he runs another bug report and finally sends the email of him finishing his job to the final boss. Once that's done and out of the way, he lies on his cubicle ground and sleeps off. Suddenly, strings of computer codes pop up and Suzuki wakes up in what he thinks to be a dream in a very different land. He finds himself standing on top of the mountains with a very large crevice beneath him. He takes out his phone to make a call, but can't find any cell signal. Then he checks himself out and realizes that he has his high school look on him. Suzuki refuses to accept the fact that he's been sucked into the game he was developing, so he convinced his loser self that he's dreaming. Suddenly, a small map HUD pops up above his vision and small menu. Items also pop up at the bottom of his vision. He controls the interface with his mind and realizes from the map that he's in Dragon's Valley, and his name is also Satu in this space. He checks out the other items on his menu and realizes that they are all objects of his own creation. He checks his map one more time and scans through the map to notice the huge batch of enemies coming his way. Upon further inspection, he finds out that these enemies are called Lee people, and they're pretty bad news. The lizard men got to his location and fired several arrows at him by some miracle. None of the arrows seemed to deal significant damage to Satu whatsoever. He even tried using some of his abilities but couldn't implement them yet. Scared he is going to get fried, Satu ducks for cover and accidentally implements his meteor shower skill in his interface. This meteor shower alone destroys every last lizard man who came to attack him in his territory, saving its caster a ton of health as the showers destroy the awfulized people. Satu's XP increases by 100-fold and lands from a measly level on to a whopping level 310. This action, L1, also unlocks several skills and actions that he can use in his future combat, and Satu never even knew about it after the attack. Satu is greeted by the last surviving lizard man who was already pretty injured. The lizard man gives him a sword to fight with and speaks in a language Satu couldn't understand. He picks the sword up and keeps fighting the lizard man till he finds a weak spot and throws his sword to finish off the lizard man. This makes him acquire the skill of throwing in his inventory story, and Satu gets down to chilling and understanding the new world around him. In the end, he decides to check the log out and save button, but unfortunately the game doesn't let him log out at all. Satu checks his other stats and finds out that he's been boosted up to level 310. He also checks out the injury he sustained earlier and realizes that it's already healed. His mind connects the dots and he finds out that his ability levels have all been maxed out already. To understand what happened better, he checks his game logs and finds nothing of importance there. Then he moves on to check out the meteor rain that he just used to destroy the lizard people, turns it on, and maxes the intensity just to see what will happen. Before he could realize his mistake, the entire crevice that he was in was destroyed by the meteor rain. Satu runs as fast as he can to the edge of the space and manages to escape being blown to smither by entering another part of the game. He quickly turns off the meteor rain skill and conjures a water bottle with infinite water out of his inventory. Once that's done, he checks his purse and finds out that he's pretty rich, plus he has other clothing items like a robe and some magic boots that he could wear to the town nearby. He spends the rest of the night checking through his inventory for magic spells he might have missed. Along the way, the next morning, Satu finally gets to the most beautiful cliff he's ever seen, happy to finally be alive. He explores the entire landscape and finally arrives at the warrior's fort. There he does a little background check and finds out that there are currently about 100 soldiers there, and the average level there is about 7. He then checks further and finds out that Wyvern is above him. He jumps to check it out and finds out that the wyvern is out for blood. He chases the wyvern away with a stone and realizes that the wyvern is heading in the direction of the army guarding the fort. He tried understanding the language of the soldiers guarding the fort, but just couldn't figure out what they were saying, so he uses lip-reading skills to understand them and finds out that the soldiers were only signaling each other to get ready for an all-out attack against the Wyvern the Proud. Leading the squad urges soldiers to attack the Wyvern till their last breath, and the war begins. Shortly Satu watches one of the commanders of the army, a pretty girl named Xena, get blown off into the sky by the Wyvern and jumps up to catch and save the pretty young damsel in distress moments. After saving the poor girl, she wakes up and finds herself in Sachan's. After looking around for a little while, she finds herself and Satu hanging on a tree branch. On their way down the cliff, Satu tells her not to worry and then jumps back to the cliff. Once he's back there, he places Xena gently on the ground and listens to her speed talk, like a teenage girl who's just meeting a handsome boy for the first time in her life. When she's done yapping, Satu introduces himself and makes her very embarrassed to talk to him. Apparently, loser Suzuki wasn't doing well with his Rizma in this world too. Thankfully, Xena was young and hadn't seen the world yet, so she embarrassingly introduces herself as Xena, a military mage. With Count Salu, she's 17 years old and doesn't have a boyfriend yet, since she's devoted the past 2 years of her life to serving in the military. Satu gets embarrassed for even talking to her in the first place, but before things get too awkward, both of them are interrupted by Lilo, the big cougar soldier, and her assistant to prevent a fight from happening. Satu introduces himself as a traveling merchant who lost his items to the meteor attack. However, Lilo wasn't dumb at all, so she asked him why he didn't run in the opposite direction when he found out about the meteor attack. At this point, Satu cooks up a lie about his grandpa dying and him going to visit his grave. He lies and lies until he acquires the falsehood skill and manages to fool Lilo into believing him. Eventually, she asks him for his citizenship papers, and he lies that he lost it in the attack. As well. So Lilo led him back to the city of Salo, where he could get his papers back. Satu heaves a sigh of relief and follows them. On their way back, he finds people cutting up a wyvern corpse and asks about it. Xena and Lilo tell him that wyvern's hide in parts serve as great economic value to the city's economy. They can eat the flesh at will, turn the hides into armor and clothes, and also do a few other things with the organs. As for the meat, Satu finds out from the driver that it tastes pretty bad. And however, he mentions that the slaves would still eat the meat, regardless of the taste. Shocked by the revelation, Satu checks through the statistics of the slaves in his interface, only to find out that a whopping 20% of the city's population were actually slaves. Before he could complain about that, they all arrived at the city. Xena asks him if he plans on staying in the city for good, and Satu tells her he'd like to get a room in the inn. First, Lilo suggests he go to the Gate Inn for the best service in the city, since it's also close to the main entrance as well. Getting to the city, Xena says her goodbyes to Satu as she needs to be debriefed, and thanks him once again for saving her. Sorry ass, Satu tells her not to think too much about it, but then Xena takes it personally and swears to repay him someday. Satu follows Lilo to the Quack Immigration building in the city so he can get his papers back. The person in charge tells him to place his hands on the Yamato stone so he can get a good reading on Satu. Satu places his hand there and speaks out his gaming name, Satu. Before watching the stone read out his status information to avoid suspicion. The stone reads Satu's stats before the upgrade he'd earlier and convinces the man that Satu is just a regular kid with little to no power to protect himself. While writing his papers, he complains about the consequences of running away from home as a young man. At the age of 15, once he's done, Satu settles the man and gets his city entry visa, which is valid for 10 days, after which he has to come back and renew. Before leaving, the man warns him not to move to the city with an expired visa, or else he might get caught by the soldiers and turned into a slave. After getting the memo, Satu thanked everyone for the help and made his way to the gate in which was nearby. He strolls through the vibrant town with a smile on his face, when suddenly he feels his hand gently brushing against Aladi's huge cups. Boys, we need to stay focused, see, before our boy Satu can react. To the softness of the lady's chest, she drags him into her mother's inn on their way. There Satu runs a quick background check on her and realizes that she's actually 13. Eventually the girl takes her to the gate in where she takes him to see her mother, who is the innkeeper. Getting there, Satu does a background check on the mother and gets disappointed at her size because she looks too hot to be fat. The girl talks to her mother about their new customer and she asks him for his luggage. Satu pays the bills for a room and asks about their food. The mother tells him she's already put the light out in the kitchen, but he can still try some of the potato quiches that she made earlier that day, if he can eat them cold. Martha, the 13-year-old girl, stays with the handsome boy in the dining room until her mother ushers her to go clean the merchant's room. After she's gone, Satu asks her about some of the weird, cowardly merchants she was talking about back then, and the mother tells him about the demon lord that appeared on their land back, then only to be defeated by some hero 70 years ago. Hearing this, Satu is very surprised by this, and he's a sigh of relief that he didn't come to that world when the demon lord still existed. The woman continues by letting him know that they're still safe if the demon lord suddenly comes back to life. Satu chuckles a little bit and asks her about the dragons. The woman tells him not to worry about the dragons, as they're mostly sleepy heads and would rather sleep their years off than come out to attack humans. The last one they found came out 2 years ago and did nothing wrong to the humans. As for the one before the last, she says the dragon ate all their livestock and rendered their fields useless. For now, the city's main concern is the wyverns, who don't seem to know when to stop attacking the city. Just then, someone visits the inn and urges the keeper to come meet him. After she's gone, Satu tries out the different foods. The lady served him and enjoys every single bit of them while he eats. Martha shows up to talk about a few things. With him, Satu asks her about Thessity and where he can find supplies and some new clothes. Martha explains a few places to him, and Satu asks her to take him there moments later. Satu and Martha are seen walking through the streets of the eastern part of the city, when suddenly he notices a merchant maltreating some demium slaves for simply passing in front of his stall. Satu walks in and protects the slaves from getting harassed any further. He chases the stall owner away and helps the slaves get back on their feet once that's out of the way. Martha tells him the backstory behind the hate for the demi-humans. Apparently the demi-humans used to kill farmers and merchants moving along their routes, so whenever they were being captured as slaves they were always treated like trash. Moving on, Martha shows Satu a stall with some items she would want to buy, so Satu acts like the perfect gentleman and gets her everything she wants to get. After their shopping spree, they return to the inn and Satu spots someone weird being carted away in a caravan filled with demi-humans. Satu ignores them and gets back to the inn, where he finds little Uni, who just helped him clear the room. He gives her a tip and gets to the room after finding out where the bathroom is. When it's dinner time, Satu gets some watered-down mead and some wild boar steak with vegetable soup and some cider dishes, all recommended by yours faithfully, Martha. He tries some of the vegetable soup before eating the steak. Contrary to popular opinion, he found the entire thing to be very delicious and ended up eating everything on his plate. Once he's done, he gets seconds and ends up eating way too much for one night. In the end, he hits the sheet to get to sleep. But before doing that, he thinks about everything he's been doing so far and realizes that they don't fit into any game he's played in his lifetime. It was then that he started considering the possibility of him not being in a dream. Maybe this imaginary new world was real. He gets up and checks out all the concepts of the game, only to come up with nothing useful in the end. He gets to the top of the roof and sees the entire city from the rooftops, before deciding to just abandon his former world and enjoy the new one he's living in. The next morning, Martha gets up to call Satu to come to entertain his girlfriend, Xena, who was there to see him. Satu gets dressed and finds out that Xena was there to take him around the city, to repay him for the debt she feels towards him for saving her. Thankfully, the gentlemanly Satao notices how hard Xena is trying to win him over and accepts the ride on a whim. Xena takes Satu to the stalls in town and starts by buying him some sweet treats called serusatu, pays for the treats, and this makes Xena very sad as she wants to foot the bill as well. However, Satu tells her not to worry too much about that and just enjoy the time they have together. Satu takes a bite out of his Sue dessert and enjoys it voraciously. Once they're done, they move to get some other treats like honey, buns and fried bat wings dipped in black miso. Moments after getting the black miso fried bat, a runt rushes into Xena and stains her white blouse with black miso. Xena gets very distraught as she borrows the blouse from her mother and is unsure of what she will do to her in the meantime. Satu thinks of a few places where they can get the stain removed. Just then, Jamea, a level 5 mage with a knowledge of everyday magic, shows up and offers to help them get the stain off their clothes. Satu objects a few times, but eventually they agree to let her help. So Satu leads them to an alleyway, and Jama washes Xena off. Toby, entirely clean after getting the stain off the duo, continues their date, and Satu gets curious enough to ask her about how she chants her spells, Zenatries, speaking out the chant, which turns out to be absolute garbage. Satu chuckles shyly and asks Xena to tell him when she started learning magic. Xena tells him she's been studying magic for the past 3 years and has long since been able to do amazing things with it. Although she does admit to wanting to use magic to fly one day, she then asks Satu why he wants to learn magic, and Satu comes up with the funniest reason why he would love to learn magic. His response made Xena laugh and become more comfortable around him. Satu saves the day by letting Xena know that he wants to go on a date with Heron. The sky very soon. This made Xena more eager to learn how to fly, and she told him to count on her for that. Moving on, they get to other stalls in the street to get some ointment for Martha's mother, and then move on to check the highest spot on the walls of the capital. From there, Satu saw a windmill there and asked her about it. Xena tells him the windmill is there to serve as a normal mill, but if a wyvern attacks the city, it can quickly be changed to a battery. Satu immediately gains interest in checking it out, and after that they get to the Paleon temple as well. Getting there, Xena introduces the legendary hero's sword to Satu, telling him about the special characteristics of the sword once a worthy holder handles it. Princess Orna, who's a nun at the church, shows up to say hi and further educate them on the facts surrounding the sword. Xena introduced Orna as the daughter of the Count before she was chosen to come serve at the temple. Orna smiles and compliments Xena's taste in men, and this sends Xena into a spiral of embarrassment over what her sister-in-the-Lord said to her just then. Someone calls her in to come to check up on Boral, one of her patients there, and Aura leaves shortly afterward. Xena and her love interest move on to another part of town as Satu watches Xena discuss things with the man there. He checks out his inventory to check out what names he's been called while he was playing. Upon checking all the titles he's acquired, overall he realizes that hero isn't one of them. What was he thinking anyways? Xena and Satu continue their tour around the city, and Xena makes sure to explain as many things as possible, just so Satu can understand the history of their great city. Amid her discussion, Xena mentions something about the Demon Lord attacking the city about 66 years ago, only to end up getting defeated. Satu gets curious and asks her some questions about Demon Lords being able to control demons. Xena tells him there are some Demon Lords with the ability to control demons, and those are the baddest ones to live. As they move past the city, they suddenly hear a riot somewhere near them and stop to check it out. After close inspection, Satu and Xena realize that the head priest of the Zakwan temple has gathered a bunch of people from his district to say demeaning things about the Demium slaves that their slave master brought towards them. That morning, after inciting violence in the people's hearts, the priest sells off some normal rocks disguised as divine rocks so that the people can stone the demi-humans to death. The stupid people happily drop their money to pay the useless priest for his scam just so they could enact their anger on the demi-humans for doing nothing to them personally. At that point, Xena couldn't take it anymore as cherished in front of the demi-humans. and ordered them to stop. Saint their vile way Satu also jumps in to help his girl and finds out that the fat priest isn't their master. He searches his map for their master and finds the idiot staying somewhere near the place, smiling at Thescom. He set in place for the dumb people of the capital Satu, does another search to find the other sewer rats in the city and manages to find them all. Meanwhile, the fat priest orders the people to stone, both Xena and the demi-people, that the others were trying to stone to death. Satu goes behind their backs and knocks out the agitators of the community one by one. At that instant, a priest from the Iron Temple joins Xena and supports her in his stead. Satu finally gets to the useless prick slave master and knocks him out. Then he places him in front of the people and exposes the scam that Theman, who was named and the priest tried to pull the people's eyes, are now clear, and they shift their anger to the right people. However, things don't stop there as exposes the demon living inside his body and lets it roam free and attack people. Xena asks Satu to take the demi-people to safety while she calls for backup, and Satu gets down to do just that. Satu asks the demi-people to get up and follow him to safety. However, the slaves didn't want to go against their commander as they feared that he would tighten their collars and strangle them to death. Satu does a quick check and finds out that they have no master anymore. He quickly links this to the possibility of their master dying and then breaks the chains to set them free. The demon finally gets free from his body and creates a large magic teleportation spell on the ground, which sucks Satu, the demi-humans, Xena and her backup, all into a multi-layered labyrinth. Satu wakes up shortly and listens to the squeaky terrible voice of the eye demon who trapped them in the labyrinth, telling them to kill each other and fight for a chance to get to the exit. He understands the objective at hand and decides to get the demi-humans on his side. First, he introduces himself as Satu and realizes that they were named Dog, Cat and Lizard. Satu clearly can't be calling them such irritating names, so he decides to change their names to Pucci, Tama and Lisa. The demi-humans seem to be fine with the names, so he gives them new clothes and medicine to freshen up the demi-human stride, rejecting the help Satu rendered to them because they didn't want him wasting resources on them. However, Satu ordered them to wear their clothes, which they ended up doing shortly afterwards. Satu gives some very delicious sweets baked in honey with some water before getting to the task at hand. While they eat, he does a quick run through the entire labyrinth, only to find out how extensive the labyrinth is. He locates Xena and her soldiers and makes a gesture like he's about to leave them behind, but the slaves rush and beg him to take them along with him so they don't get left behind. Satu lets them know that he's never going to leave them behind, but he only just wanted to check the passageway before leaving. He checks their stats and realizes Liza has some combat experience. He gives her assword and makes plans with them. Before moving on, after walking a few meters forward, POI smells blood and lets her master know beforehand. On getting to the source of the smell, Satu finds a giant bug monster eating a human it killed. Previously, he gets very confused over what to do, but then Liza advises him to either run away now or shoot the bug in the arse while it's not looking. Satu thanks them for the help and attacks the bug from behind. When the bug turns, he shoots it till it stops moving and saves the day. The girls ask him about the gun he used on the monster, but he lies to them and tells them not to tell anyone about the gun. Moving on, they get down to harvesting important parts of the bug. Liza harvests the core of the monster and gets a new spear weapon. Satu shoots off their collars and continues his exploration with them. Minutes later, Satu appoints Tama to be in charge of collecting big stones that are light cores. Tama accepts her new job and identifies a large larvae bug in front of them. Satu quickly sprints to action to take down the larvae. Soon, a few other larvae pop up, and they all work together to take them down before harvesting their cores. Up next, Satu moves on with POI and tells her to throw rocks at their maining larvae to wake them up and distract them so he can take them down with ease. Their plan works, but only for the short term. But then one of the larvae turned to POI to attack her. POI got very scared and ran away screaming and panicking. Satu holds her back and urges her not to run away like that again, or else she might end up getting herself killed. Thankfully, POI got the gist and became obedient to her new master moving on. They continued their campaign and took down as many monsters as they could, which in turn increased their levels a little bit after collecting the cores of all the monsters they took out. Liza and the other two kids become tired. Satu treats them to some jerky and allows them to eat and sleep afterward. Once they're asleep, Satu watches over them and continues moving with them. Once they're back up after several hours of killing and taking care of those pesky monsters, Liza asks her new master if she could start up a fire to cook some of the frog meat they just killed. Satu asks a few questions to make sure he is in the clear to get things done. But then again, Liza assures him that he can't get sick from eating the meat, especially when it's cooked, so he's good to go when Satu gives them the go-ahead. Liza whips up a delicious frog meat kebab. Satu tastes it and realizes it smells and tastes like chicken after eating helos. The girls to bathe themselves and get some sleep before they continue moving. When they wake up, they continue their movement and finally get stopped up front by a slime. Satu tries a fire attack on the slime mold, but can't manage to inflict any harm on it. Liza steps right up and takes the slime out by smashing its core to pieces. Then POI spots a very oddle-looking, almost invisible pattern on the wall before her and brings it to the notice of her master. Satu checks the wall's framework and realizes that it's a hidden door that leads to another part of the labyrinth. Soon an undead wolf attacks and pins Satu down. Thankfully, with the trap skill that he acquired moments ago, he kicks the wolf into a certain trapdoor and the wolf falls into the abyss underneath it. Once that's out of the way, they continue moving through the labyrinth and stop when they find a cocoon of webs hidden inside a room. Again, Satu scans the web and finds out that there are people stuck in there. He quickly instructs his girls to start opening up the cocoons so they can set them all free. The first person they save claims to be J.Y. Balon from a noble family and promises to reward them once they're out of the labyrinth. The second person is Nidoran, a slave trader, and the last person is the stupid commoner who treated POI like the last time Satu and Martha visited the eastern part of the city. He recognizes how cold he was to the Demian back then, and even now, he still doesn't want POI to rescue him at all. He even orders POI to give him her weapon so he can free himself and get out of the cocoon easily. Thankfully, Satu couldn't care less about what happens to him, so he calls his girls and urges them to get a move on. After trekking for a few more meters, they come across a battleground with dozens of soldiers battling slime monsters. Satu springs into action and dishes out instructions for his girls, with one of them luring out the slimes and then having the others break their cores. After immersing themselves in the battle, the stupid commoner gets cocky and tries taking down a slime monster all on his own, only to end up getting chased as his ass hits the dust with nothing left to do. The commoner gets saved by the same demi-humans. He so hates his pride is broken and the idiot is short of words to say. As for Satu, he saves Xena from getting captured by a slime monster who wants to have her for dinner. Upon reuniting with her love interest, Xena hugs Satu and thanks her stars that he's okay. Satu explains the right way to kill slime and ends up telling Xena that he learned that from a female demium. Xena gets a little jealous, but then she waves it away and continues, clinging on to her impending boyfriend. After that's done, Tama spots another hidden wall and brings it to her master's knowledge. Satu checks through the wall and analyzes the labyrinth structure. Again, this time he's interrupted by a band of soldiers who found a treasure box upon opening it. The Aeneid monster who trapped them in the labyrinth pops out and challenges everyone to fight him alone. Almost immediately, everyone gets ready to defend themselves against the big monster. However, the annoying Cyclops ass monster had a sinister plan. He uses his evil eye of attraction magic to make everyone in the room, except hallucinate and see their desires. Satu notices the foul play at work here and knocks out his girls first before they do something rash as the other soldiers battle each other. Jin Balon decides to house some fire spells on the demon. Sadly for him, the demon seemed to be enjoying the fire rather easily at this point. Satu decides to jump into the fight. However, one other horrid creature pulls him into a trapdoor. But he frees himself, now facing the monster. Satu summons the holy sword from his weapons arsenal and destroys the animal. In one slice after that, he disguises himself to look like the hero wearing a cloak and climbs back up to face the demon. He finds the others shooting all their attack spells and joins them to throw stones at them. The demon realizes that it's slowly losing the fight, so he decides to try his last resort. He calls on his master before Satu finishes him and allows himself to be eaten by the master, who's a high-level demon, with lots of perks while everyone runs from the deadly monster. Satu stays behind to fight. The tough bastard who calls himself the strongest, unable to use the sword properly. Satu struggles to end the master in the first round of the fight. He tries increasing his stats so he can use the sword, but nothing works. Just then he remembers something that Xena told him back then, and then decides to try using another approach to his attack. He uses the fire shot at the demon with the lance, but then it doesn't work. Satu starts getting a little worried about what to do as he searches through his title list to check out what are the titles he might use to take down the demon. Eventually he uses the God Killer title to take down the demon with his sword. This ends the battle with the demons, and soon enough Satu and the others are sent back to the surface, where they meet their new benefactors. Satu informally adopts his new 3 servants and tells them to join him for his next meeting. The stupid commoner from earlier comes to his senses and finally apologizes for his stupidity. Then Satu takes his servants to Nin's tent to receive his reward. Nidoran Makisat's adoption of Liza Pucci and Tamo official, and also adds 2 other slaves to his wing. One of them who is the shy and cute Lulu, and the other being the weirdly sassy Arisa, whom Satu couldn't figure out. To confirm his suspicions, Satu tries to test them. He speaks to them in Japanese Kines and tells them that they both have spiders on their backs. While Lulu couldn't understand the language, Arisa reacted as if she understood what Satu was telling her. Satu suddenly gets the suspicion that she's either like him who was transferred there or she's something else he doesn't know yet. On their way back home, they all discuss what's up and the new girls introduce themselves. Arisa introduces herself as Arisa, an 11-year-old service slave who was born in the lost kingdom of Kor. As for Lulu, Shay introduces herself as a 14-year-old girl from the kingdom of Cork as Welland. Although she's weak and scrawny looking, she claims to be very strong and usable. In any place she's placed, Sechi welcomes her to his little clique and gives the floor to Liza Pucci and Tomato introduce themselves. Once that's out of the way, Arisa gets close to the little cute demi-kids and pets them on the head. From the looks of things, she looked to be cool with the kids, and that's fine by Satu. After all the necessary introductions, they all get a move on to town. On their way home, Lulu's belly makes growling sounds, signaling them that it's time to eat. Satu asks the girls what they wish to eat, and they all say meat. Liza, on the other hand, says she wants poultry. As it's one of her cravings, Satu gets curious and asks them to tell him the last time they had a good meal. The slaves explain how hard it was for them to eat back when they were under their wicked masters. Satu gets very sorry for them and decides to treat them to a feast. He takes them to the nearby pub and serves them all their favorite dishes, poi and tama. Both eat their food voraciously and end up burning their mouths. As for Satu, he gets some simmered sheep and trial, soup enriched with vegetables, and enjoys them all in their crunchy state shortly. Afterward, the restaurant owner brings them some grilled intestines alongside liver and hearts. Together everyone eats well and enjoys their food. Satu, on the other hand, spots the rags his girls had in them and decides to buy them all new clothes. He excuses himself to get outside and shop alone, leaving the girls to finish eating their food before joining him outside. Satu spots a stall cooking poultry chicken and buys some for Liza. On his way back, he finds some stray demi-humans and serves them up next. He gets his girls some new clothes and gives them a brand new look by nightfall. He returns to the inn with his new partners and asks the keeper if she could get them all new rooms. Sadly, the keeper tells him there are no new rooms, as they're fully booked. Satu decides to sleep, or camp outside, while his girls get the best sleep of their lives. Then he checks the atmosphere around the inn and finds out that the people dining there are not fond of the demi-humans that he brought into the inn. Arisa also notices this and decides to do something about it. She urges her master to keep calm while she speaks some sense into these people. She clouds their brains with her psychic magic abilities and makes them feel comfortable by politely asking them to quit staring at them like a bunch of freaking scarecrows. After she's done with teaching them some sense, she asks the innkeeper if there is a stable nearby that they could use. The innkeeper tells them there are no horses nearby, so they can use them in the meantime. After her meets with the innkeeper, Satu walks over to the stables and makes a nice bed for Liza and the others to sleep on. Before getting to his room, he advises them to try not to kill any troublemakers that may come attacking them. The girls get the memo, so they promise to be good girls for their masters. Upon returning to his room, Satu gets ready for bed and undresses his clothes. Surprisingly, Lulu opts in to help him undress, only to realize that he isn't comfortable with her doing that. For him, Satu continues undressing himself and turns back to see Arisa and Lulu fully undressed and ready to service him. He humbly tells them he's not interested in their services and tells them to get to sleep. While Arisa, the sassy one, was pretty surprised Lulu only cried and was petted to get to sleep. Satu goes to sleep a while later and wakes up shortly to find Arisa directly on top of him. Before he could say a thing, she plants a soft kiss on his mouth and uses her psychic magic to force him into wanting her body. Satu nearly falls for her as his hands travel toward her cherry-shaped chest. Thankfully, our boy snaps out of his nonsense and realizes that he's no lolicon, so he hugs Arisa and forbids her from using magic on him again. He lets her know that he knows about the stunt she pulled earlier and she shouldn't be using such magic on him at all. At this point, Arisa was ready to give her master a piece of her mind. Satu asks her to tell him her real intentions toward him, and she says that she's fallen for him since the first time she met him. Surprised, Satu was about to say something, but the 11-year-old girl stopped him with her ranting, asking him why he didn't like her slender body. Well, she's 11, so I know just how bad things would get for Satu if they were in the West. Oh, she didn't stop there. She continues raving madness over how pretty Satu is, and lets him know that it's her duty as Satu's slave to entice him into doing the thing. With her, initially, she'd waited for him to come get her on her bed. But then again, Satu never made the first move, and she decided to try her luck with that. Satu and analyzes her skills and realizes that she's not a natural NPC in that game. Maybe she was like him. Well, his curiosity gets satisfied the moment Arisa introduces herself to him. She's a Japanese woman called Tachibana Arisa, and she used to live a lonely and depressing life back in their old world, but then she was reincarnated to this new world with herald memories to continue living an adventurous life. After that, she asks him if he is also reincarnated, and he tells her that he doesn't know what she is talking about. Arisa moves on to explain the very intricate details about the two types of summoning that can happen. In the game, the first one is for one to lose their life in the old world and be born in this new one. As for the second, it involves getting transferred from the old world into the new one. Just like that, she makes an example of Lulu, whose grandpa was born in Japan, and reincarnated there in her form. Once he's done hearing all she had to say, Satu decides that he was transferred there. However, his transformation seems weird, given that there was no magic circle. At the point of his transference, Satu keeps quiet for a fraction of a second to think about what to say to Arisa. When he's ready, he asks Arisa to tell him how she became a slave. Arisa begins telling him a story till they both sleep off. Very early the following morning, Martha brings Xena up to his room to check upon him and make her see the naked girls sleeping near him. Xena tries her best to be very respectful of everyone there, but then she loses it when she finds out that Arisa slept near her. Crush heartbroken, she cursed at Satu and ran outside with tears in her eyes. Satu, who didn't understand what was going on, suddenly realized that he'd broken the heart of his friend turned girlfriend. He quickly gets dressed and gets downstairs, to caress his love interest and reassure her that nothing happened between him and the 11-year-old scumbag who wanted to destroy his life. Xena asks him a few questions, and he tells her he's not into little lolicons moving on. He decides to get her a nice shore, and she happily obliges with him. Later on, they all get back home in one piece and find Arisa outside. Satu slaps her head and tells her to go get the others now. Before it's too late, Arisa rushes back inside and gets the others shortly after she left. Satu remembers the story she told him about how she became a slave moments after she was reincarnated. Arisa used her knowledge of the previous world to make some wealth, and for a while she was successful and even became a princess. Sadly, things suddenly started changing for the worse, and Arisa started to lose her riches before she can do something about it. The person succeeds, and then neighboring country takes over their land. After watching the king and prince get executed, she was forced into slavery and had to be a slave until a demon attacked them and destroyed the castle they were staying at when her villa was burned. Down she and Lulu ran for their lives and were caught by Nidor, and Sata snaps back to his senses and finds his girls present and waiting for his orders. He gives them some money to get clothes and supplies. While he does his own thing, Arisa gets his permission to use magic and leaves with her colleagues shortly. After the girls leave, Xena asks Satu if there is anything he would like to do. In the meantime, now that he is alone, Satu tells her that he's off to see some of those odd jobs guys to see if they can help him with a place where Liza and the others can sleep because they can't sleep in the stables forever. Xena asks if she can come along with him, and Satu tells her she's free as long as she wants to spend the whole day with him. Xena smiles warmly at him and decides to go with him. On getting to the odd job house, they both meet Naoi the housekeeper, who also happens to be on level 9. She introduces herself and asks them what they want to see her for. After listening to what Satu had to say, she brings them to their seat and shows them some available places in West Town. She warns them about the horrendous crime rate there and tells them not to expect the place to be that expensive. She then asks him about the budget, and he tells her that plans on spending not more than 2 silver coins on the place. Naughty gets very happy and shows him the various options available for such a budget after checking through. For a while she picks one that's best for the type of setting. Satu was after she takes him there and tells him the only downside of the house, and that's the fact that the previous owner got assassinated by the crime bosses. Scared for the safety of his people, he continues to check out the other options. Sadly, there wasn't anyone that fit his tastes. After spending hours checking out houses, Satu didn't like they all decide to check back later in the day. After that, Satu asks Xena where she'd like to go. In the meantime, Xena gets confused, but this time, NY advises them to get to a popular flea market that just opened not too long ago. Today is their special sales day, and that would be the best opportunity for a date between two people in love. Xena happily takes him there and enjoys herself. On the way there, upon getting to the busy market, Satu finds Arisa, Lisa, Poe, and Tama. They're all enjoying themselves to the fullest. He notices the change in Arisa's hair color and asks her about it. Marisa tells him she had to change her hair color when she found out that purple hair is a bad sign. She then asks her master if he could help her get some cards with little art thingies on the front, alongside some educative characters at the back. After getting them the cards, Arisa asks her master if he plans on going to the outdoor stage for the play. Satu tells her that he plans, and then proceeds to get the tickets for the play. Moving on, Satu takes his girl to a jewelry shop to get some earrings, and Arisa keeps disturbing them. Moments later, they get to the play and watch the entire thing from start to finish. While they watch the play, Poi and Tama all get very bored of the play, and they ask their master for some meat. Satu ignores them and narrating the boring-ass story that was playing in front of him. Even when Satu thinks he is at the end of the play continues with an assassin threatening the noble and the holy knight coming to kill him. Thankfully, the play ends abruptly, and Satu gets out of the theatre ASAP. On his way out, he spots some Gabo vegetable bread and analyzes it a little. But just then a lady passes near him and drops a handkerchief. Satu notices this, picks it up for her and gives it to her. The lady thanks Satu for the help, but then recognizes him as the gentleman who sat behind her in the play rather than leave Satu and go her merry way. She goes on and on about the plot of the terrible play that didn't end up following the script. Satu gets to listen to her talk about the script and finally understands why they had to improvise on the stage anyway. That's not his problem since the play is over. However, the girls come over and Arisa starts arguing with Xena over who is supposed to die and who is supposed to live in the end. Both of them get serious with one another, with Arisa trying to expose Xena's secret. She asks her why she joined the military in the first place and insinuates that Xena was trying to escape being married into another noble family. Being in the military would guarantee her 5 years of service without any love or affairs outside. Arisa found it wrong for her to think so selfishly instead of sacrificing everything she loves for her spouse to top it all off. She tells Zanato, quit being such a good little girl or else she'll have the love of her life stolen away from her. This hits Xena hard, and she expresses her shock about what she was being told. Satu steps in at this point and scolds Arisa for being rude. He forces her to apologize for being rude, all while understanding her point. When he's done, he asks them all out for some meat, skewers, and they all opt in to get some after the girls are gone. Xena begins to develop some phobia of Satu being taken away from her. She, however, chooses to keep quiet and continue what she is doing. On their way back, she meets up with Lalo and some of her other colleagues coming over from a battle. She asks them what the problem was, and they all tell her about their fight with the Fang Ants who chased them away. Apparently, the Fang Ants are a gang group that Lalo and the others have been dying to catch for a long time. Xena heals them up with her healing magic and asks to get the others treated. Satu gives her the go-ahead, but before she can leave POI, Tama and the others arrive at their location with the carcass of a huge giant housefly. Satu does his usual analysis on it and realizes that many houseflies are heading their way. He quickly dishes out instructions to his people to get prepared for the approach of the fly monsters, but unfortunately, there isn't enough time for them to prepare. Soon the ants came by and started approaching the city. Thankfully, the city already had security measures put in place in case of situations like this one. They all put the protective barrier around the entire city walls, and this stops about 80% of the flying ant monsters from entering the city. As for the other 20%, Satu and his people had to be taken care of, so he tells his people what to do and then splits them according to their skills. Soon, even the soldiers are there to help them keep the pesky ants at bay. Everyone plays their parts and has fun slicing and dicing the invasive ants into bite-sized small chops during his battle with the ant. Satu notices some of them inside Na's building. He quickly rushes towards her and fights off one of the huge ants at the trapdoor in Na's facility. Then he looks into the trapdoor and asks Norhi if she is doing okay. Thankfully, she's doing just fine. But then again, she can't come up the stairs because the ant had already spilled concentrated formic acid on the floor where she was standing. Just as Satu is about to do something, the manager of the place shows up and uses his Ivy control spell to pick Naughty up. After that, she thanked Satu and Hermanaga Binin, who also appeared to have a crush on her, by kissing them on the cheeks. The manager gets jealous of Satu and asks about him after the introduction. Satu does his analysis of the manager and finds out that he's an elf from a different race. Satu mistakes him for a long-eared elf, but then, again, Naughty schools him on the proper ways to identify someone like her. Manager moving on, they thank each other for the help and continue with their normal lives. Satu gets outside the building and finds Xena and some other soldiers burning the remains of the monsters they killed earlier. Xena spots a man and rushes over to hug him, but soon trips and nearly falls. After getting back on her feet, she tells Herman that she's off to help the guardsmen keep the other monsters from attacking the nearby villages and towns. Satu gives her blessing and she goes on her way. Just then a random guard brings Liza to her master and orders him to hand over the core he's been selling to the city government. Satu, who's very smart, provides the receipt that proves that they are the sole owners of the core. and are under no obligation to hand them over to anybody. The guard is caught red-handed, and he leaves in shame. That night, everyone gets to eat a wonderful dinner in the inn. The innkeeper was pretty grateful to them for helping her take down the monsters in town earlier. While the others eat their food, Sato sneaks outside and searches for the pharmacy. On his way there, he finds some of the people he saved in the labyrinth earlier and stops to talk to them. They all offer their help to guide him towards a very good pub to eat and drink. Sato spends some time with them and continues his outing along the way. A shadow owl's feather falls on his hands, and he picks it up knowing that his cute little girls might like them. Suddenly, he tracks the shadow owl to an alleyway where something sinister is about to happen. He gets there and finds himself getting attacked by some weird creatures. After taking care of them, he gets closer to the wounded demi-humans on the ground, who ask him if he was one of the enemies. Sato tells him he's a friend, and the half-dead man nearly dies with that. He picks up the injured fellas and takes them to En's building. There, he hears NTI asking the manager if he is going to join her in bed, but then the manager tells her no. They both get down from their bed and find Sato taking care of one of the injured. He explains the situation to them and tells them that one of them recognizes the manager. The manager heals the elderly one and finds out that the second one is an elf. The manager recognizes the elf and calls her Mia. However, the elf only had eyes for the pretty boy. So, who was standing next to the manager? Sorry, manager. She compliments his pretty look and gets back to sleep. As for the severely injured one, a wearer rat. He coughs up some blood from his body and urges NY to go search for the ex-priest Horn Holyved in the back streets, hoping he could help her. Sato follows her out to make sure she gets there in one piece. The next morning, Sato gets back home and gives Arisa the impression that he went to a brothel and spent the night there. Sato, as he finishes removing his robe, tells her he was rescuing some hurt demi-humans from being killed in Thaliway during his search for a pharmacy to get Lulu some drugs. At this point, Arisa started rambling on and on about how cool Sato would have looked to rescue some people like a knight in shining armor and all that. As Lulu wakes up, Sato tells Arisa to cut the bull crap and put some clothes on. Meanwhile, He gets closer to Lulu and gives her some of the drugs he bought for her. The previous night after that, he heads towards Na's building to check up on the two of them. NY tells him Mia is okay, but then again she does seem to be suffering from MP deprivation, and they should be able to get her back to normal with some normal stamina charge, or better still, they can take her to a ley line or an intersection source to get her back to normal. The only problem now is that they can only get such a rich mana source in the Count's Palace or the Valley of Dragons. Sato loses concentration for a second there and checks out something on his interface. He uses the skill Keen Hearing to hear what is happening upstairs. He realizes that Mia is already up and tells NAD to get up there and check her out. On getting there, Sato hides behind the door as if he was waiting to be introduced to the little sleeping beauty. When his time comes, he makes his appearance and introduces himself as Sato, a merchant who saved her and her rat buddy from getting killed by their pursuer. Mia asks if he's a spirit user, but then Sato tells her he doesn't see spirits at all. NY explains that only those with a skill called Spirit Sight can see spirits' moments. Later, NY excuses herself to cook some soup porridge for the little girl to eat, leaving Sato alone with the elf Mia to discuss and probably catch up after she's gone. Sato asks her to tell him what exactly the spirits are all about. Just then, Sleeping Beauty tells him they're sparkly and fluffy. Sato asks her a few more random questions while they wait for Naughty to bring the food she's preparing in the kitchen. After eating, Sato gets up to take his leave, but then, again Mia holds him back and asks him to stay with her. Sato obeys her and stays by her side for another few hours. By twilight, Sato returns home and finds his girls playing with the card game thing he bought them in the market. The previous day, he decides to join them and try them out on their knowledge of the characters written on the back of the wooden cards. He turns the card backward and asks them to name the characters on the other side of the board. The cute little Demi, Kids Pochi, and Tama Al Cold call the characters Meet and end up pissing Satu off a little bit. Eventually, he draws up some of the characters on the board and continues doing his thing. Just then, Martha scolds Suni for not completing her chores on time. On the other hand, Yi tells her that she finished them on time simply because Poi and Tama helped her with them. Surprised, Satu commends the girls for being nice to their friend Yi and to pay them back for the help he treats them out to a nice picnic lunch and tells them about the people he saved the previous night. The girls naturally get very eager to see the wheat and his Princess Mia, so Satu sets up a visit to the place with them. After their meal, everyone including Lulu gets to Mia's bed to check up on the beautiful elf princess. Just as she's about to wake up, everyone instantly falls in love with her cuteness and flocks around her soft bed to say, "Hi Satu," tells the others to treat her very well while he does his own thing. In the meantime, Lulu serves Natty some tea to calm her nerves. Satu joins them shortly and discusses a few things about Satu being a merchant and stuff. NY draws him an offer to purchase a special wagon. The manager was selling soon before his retirement. Satu realizes that he rarely has enough time to ride a cart talkless of a wagon. However, this didn't stop Lulu, who advised him to get it and learn how to ride it later. Satu opts to buy the wagon on a whim without even asking for the price when he finds out how much the wagon costs. He realizes it's 18 gold pieces. Satu damns the price and takes out a huge pouch of gold as payment for the wagon. After that, he gets to the woods with the girls to practice and learn the ropes around camping. Satu makes sure to supervise and have fun with his girls as they all work towards preparing the large bonfire for when the night approaches. Not only that, but they also harvest wild crops and fruits to prepare dinner with. Once the whistler kettle, as Satu calls it, whistles out to signal them that their water is boiled and ready to be used. The demi-kids get a little confused over what to do, and they call their master to come rescue. The shouting kettle Satu sits them down and explains the concept of boiling to them while he's at it. Arisa interrupts him and complains about him trying to explain a concept too complex for the little kids to understand. Satu takes a breather and allows Arisa to take over the explanation. She does so and explains things to the little ones, so they understand them perfectly. Shortly afterward, while the kids play, the dog and cat-eared demi-humans that Satu helped earlier show up to bring some fruit and materials to them. They wanted to thank Satu for helping them with the grilled chicken back. Then in the city, however, Tama and Poi suspected they were there to do their master harm, so they rushed towards the kids and tried to chase them all away. Satu calms them down and contemplates what to do about the situation. He feels like the long-eared kids need the fruits better than he does. But then again, he won't want to reject their gift to solve this issue. He takes out some jerky from his bag and gives it to them as a token of his goodwill. The kids get a little hesitant to get the jerky. But then, Satu lets them know that it's okay. Moments later, Satu acquires the deeds to the cart or wagon from Enyarisa, suggests they use the cart to take Mia back to her house. But then again, they weren't sure where Mia's house was. They suspect it to be in the elf village, which is situated southeast of the Shay Kingdom, before doing anything rash. Satu decides to learn how to drive in theme and time, pending the manager's return. With this, he rides the cart into the meadows with Lulu beside him on their way through the plains. Satu tells Lulu to relax around him like Poi and Tamabut. Then again, Lulu says she won't dare to. Satu remembers that she's quite uncomfortable around men, and he tells her to be free with her words. Lulu begins discussing a few things about Arisa with her master and gets so talkative that Satu has to call her back to the lessons in a few hours. Satu and Lulu get the hang of riding the cart. Just then Satu senses something very weird approaching them. A cart passes near them, and he finds an owl in the tree above him, which flies toward the cart that just passed near his cart. Satu ignores the red flags and makes his way back to the city in one piece. On getting there, he finds Mia outside and asks if she's okay. The manager had bought some special medicinal potions for her to drink and get her strength from now that she's back on her feet. Arisa wants them to celebrate with her. Satu asks Mia to tell him what she wants, and she tells him she wants the honey buns Arisa then speaks up and tells her, Master, that Mia has fallen in love with the honey bun Spoochie, and Tama had told her about earlier. Satu heaves a sigh and gives them the go-ahead to do what they want soon. After they leave, Satu spots the owl and its red eyes. Again this time, he rushes back inside and finds out that the red-faced wee rat M was awake. On getting to his room, he finds the manager close to the wearer rat, and M thanks him for saving him back then. Satu tells him not to worry about it at all, but then urges him to tell him the true story of what happened to Mia. From the looks of things, Mia was captured by the wizards from her village and imprisoned somewhere. However, she managed to escape and join up with me somewhere before they traveled there to meet the manager. The flying ants that attacked the city earlier were sent by the wizards, and Mia's been there ever since. Satu considers asking the manager about his connection with Mia, but then he chooses not to intrude too much. Instead, he decides to ask him about escorting Mia back home. Just then, Poi and Tama start screaming outside, and Satu rushes downstairs to check out what is wrong. On getting there, he finds out that thunder and lightning are ravaging the skies outside, and the girls are scared of it. He brings them all together and urges them to calm down and think of it as Thesky, bringing a blessing. Before they know it, they find the owl inside the room. With them, Satu takes a look at the owl and watches it transform into one of the wizards that's after Princess Maya. Satu and the others stand their ground. As the wizard materializes into real life, M goes to attack first, but then he gets held down by Arisa's psychic magic. Satu notices the psychic magic in play here and quickly turns on his magic resistance so he can get a better look at the villain attacking him. From the looks of things, the villain turns out to be a level 41 wizard named Zen, and Satu now Zen is going to be in trouble. He thinks about the familiarity he has with the name and realizes that this Zen guy is the same person who acted as the heroine, the boring play he watched ages ago. Satu introduces himself to Zen as a normal merchant who was just there, in the wrong place at the wrong time. Zen believes Sat's words and decides to show him some mercy. However, he does warn Satu not to get any funny ideas, so that he doesn't get beaten down. Satu claims Mia's his property and politely asks Zen to leave their building. Zen picks offense in his words and decides to show Satu a piece of his mind. Satu takes him up on his offer and moves in to draw first blood. Zen, impressed by Satu movements, holds him up with his tentacles and threatens to finish him if he doesn't use his senses well. Arisa gets pissed and tries taking Zen down, but M blocks the attack and distracts Zen well enough for him to release Satu, who was still under his possession. After his release, Satu rushes to M, who is being held down by Zen's shadow whip, and breaks it with his magic fist. This surprises even Zen himself, as he prepares himself to get serious with everything. Mia notices the disaster that's about to happen and urges them to abandon her and let the carry her off. However, Satu wasn't going to allow that to happen at all. He checks in on Arisa and spots her preparing some special magic and decides to buy her some time by asking Zen to reveal his full identity. Satu finds out that Zen is the highest level undead king and is at level 41. He engages Zen in some yapping about their titles and him being a hero until Arisa finishes charging up her attack. When the time is right, she unleashes her combo at Zen and ends up dealing a little damage after the attack. Zen praises her for being such a unique person and realizes from her hair color that she was reincarnated with this. He discusses a few more things with Satu and uses his shadow whip to pick Mia up. Once that's out of the way, he opens a portal in the ground and transports himself to another dimension. As for Seithi, tells Liza and Lulu to go search for treatment for the others and also get a hold of Xena or the ex-priest to come heal them all up. In the meantime, he would follow Zen into his dimension and get Mia back in one piece. With that, he rushes into the portal before it closes and finds himself suspended in a dark body of water with his stamina and energy leaving his body. Satu wasn't so sure of what would happen. He tries, checking the map in his inventory, hoping to find something of importance there, but it's no use. In a fit of rage, Thalosa Satu screams his way into the wizard's alternate dimension. Zen spots Shim entering his dimension and asks him how he was able to resist his magic and enter his dimension without passing Thetrial. First, Satu tells him that he has a light amulet and that nullifies all magic abilities used against him. Zen, however, didn't believe Sats about having a light amulet, as he claims that only those who have acquired special magic abilities can fight him as long as he bears the Creator's blessing. He can never die. Satu decides to pursue Mia and rescue her, but then the undead king isn't going to let him have her. That easily, he morphs out of that dimension, which he calls the Master Room, and transports Zen to another. Real mentally, that he called his cradle. Satu gets very confused with the layout of the entire terrain and does a very quick scan of the terrain he calls the cradle from the looks of things. The terrain was somewhat adjacent to that of Siru. He thinks about the route he's to pass to get to Mia and climbs atop of rugged bridge. On his way, he gets attacked by some huge wasps, which he shoots down with his huge gun. Up next, Satu gets to a large door and reads the instructions on it, only to realize that the doors led to the training ground used by the elves from the looks of things. Satu is not advised to get to the training grounds, as the training there is only meant for elves. However, our boy knows he's protected by plot armor, so he waltzes in there without a care in the world and gets ready to face the challenges. On getting there, he finds an ambush waiting for him and punches the E out of them all. Once he's done, he finds out that there are 200 floors to the cradle building, and the higher he goes, the stronger the challenges are going to be. Satu gets a little irritated at this system and likens it to the stinky labyrinth he escaped from not too long ago. With time, he approaches a green compartment on one of the floors and calls to the person inside the natural room. Before he knows it, Dryad, a half-naked elf with green skin, opens the leafy doors and invites the annoying visitor to her room. Satu waltzes into the room and listens to the fat, annoying slender lady complain about having to fight him in the end. The green kid opens her eyes and finds herself admiring Sat's beautiful face. Once she's done, she asks him out to become hers, but then Satu tells her she has to be at least 16 years old before he can even consider dating someone like her. Moving on, Drud asks Satu to feed her with some MP, but then again, Satu doesn't know how to get MP out of himself without even asking him. The green girl kisses him deeply and drains a little bit of his MP to fill herself up. Satu is left with a scar on his heart as he convinces himself that he just got bitten by a dog after getting what she wants. Drad opens another secret door and shows him to Traza Yuya's room. Satu does a quick run-through and enters the room when he realizes that the coast is clear inside the room. He finds several old books scattered everywhere and does a little digging. He finds out that the space he's in is Traza Yuya's lab, and Traza Yuya is the one who created the cradle. Satu gets very curious about what's going on in Traza Yuya's head and decides to read through his diary. From the looks of things, Traza Yuya is an elf just like Mia and the manager, and his long life is coming to an end soon. So he documented some things to ensure that the cradle is governed fairly by elves for years to come. With that, Satu returns outside and finds the elf girl telling him to stand in the magic ring so he can be transported to whichever floor he wants. She asks him which floor he'd like to get to, and he tells her to take him to the Cradle Master's floor. However, Drad couldn't take him there, so she decided to send him to the furthest floor she possibly could, floor 100 there. Satu finds 3 identical big-chested homunculi guarding a big door to another important room alongside a very large golem. After doing a quick run-through, he decides he's going to be careful with. Then one of the homunculi asks Satu to introduce himself, and he calls himself a merchant with this. The homun welcome him to their space and then tell him to battle the iron golem if he wants to progress any further. Satu was just about to say something when the iron golem suddenly came to life and threatened to attack him. Satu reads the letters on the golem's face and shoots one of them. This action destroys the golem in just one shot, which leaves the 3 homun shocked. One of the honey named number 7 attacks Satu and buys time for her sisters to escape. Satu easily defeats number S and rests his hands on her soft chest. He then takes her somewhere else and places her on the floor before he continues his journey further up the cradle. Once he's sure she's safe, he gets to another green room and finds another elf life dryad, all dried up and useless. He gives the elf some water and MP by performing some mouth-to-mouth action. Then the elf girl gets back to her normal self and takes Satu to the 180th floor. On getting there, Satu finds very dangerous creatures waiting there for him. After that, he finds his way to the master's room. There he finds Zen, an unconscious Mia, and asks Zen to politely hand Mia over to him. Zen, however, wasn't going to go down without a fight. He pits Satu against some dangerous enemies, with his prize being the Holy Sword. If he manages to defeat them, Satu practically tells him to cut the shenanigans and just release Mia to him. Zen refuses to do that and moves on to the next part of his plan. He summons some of the homunculi he's kept in his inventory, as well as their iron golems, to fight Satu, while he takes Mia to another room to rest and watch Satu fight his way to safety. Moments after Zen is gone, Satu begins his survival fight against the homunculi pitted against him. In the first half of the match, he endures attacks from all the homunculi coming at him, but when he gets their attack patterns, he whoops their asses one by one. At one point in the fight, he stops the attack and questions their loyalty to a seemingly evil person, undead or not, and surprisingly, the homunal agree that they're doing this wholeheartedly, following that they start shooting magic arrows at Satu, who dodges them and counters their attacks. One of the Hunu gets very physical with him and ends up getting punched down till extinction. As for the last one, Satu could already see the blood on her mouth, so he only gave her a light punch and sent her to her subconscious for a little. While once the fight's over, Satu waltzes over to meet his real enemy, Zen this time. Zen welcomes him with open arms and flings the holy sword at Satu. Satu handles the sword and sternly looks at the undead king, almost as if he wants to ask him something very important. When he gets his attention, Satu asks him to tell him what his wish is. The undead king, who looked saddled with sadness, begins his sorrowful story, and we will explain it as best as we can here. So back before he died the first time, the undead bag of bones used to be a very healthy and well-to-do dude. However, his life met a very brutal ending, and he left Mother Earth. However, God said he wasn't done yet, so he reincarnated the undead dude as a baby in his second life. He also enjoyed life for a little while, and even met a Selly Mamita, who loved him for his personality. Bro thought he was in the clear, not knowing that he was about to live the same fate as before. Before he knew it, a fat noble with no life fell in love with his beautiful chica and had him executed on false pretenses. Anyways, this time Bro was bestowed the vision of the gods, and this soul ability alone was what turned him into an undead king. Here turned to the castle as a bag of skeletons, only to find the bludgeoned remains of his wife and family scattered all around the castle. From then on, he transformed his wife and family into living corpses. He called the undead. Then he took the fight to the idiot who was too jealous of him and made sure he got a taste of his own medicine when he was done with his revenge. Bro realized that he wasn't allowed to die anymore ever since that unfateful revelation. Bro made it his life mission to find a hero like Satu and make sure that he ends his life with the holy sword. Now that he's brought Satu up to speed, he begs him to take his life before he turns into a demon lord in spirit. As well, having heard everything, the undead king told him. Satu takes a deep breath and activates the infamous blue shimmer of the sword before stabbing the undead king with it and killing him once the deed's been done. Satu picks up the ring that the undead dude left behind and disperses the evil daughters of Jezebeliving there before leaving the girls promise to meet him again. Once they get themselves back to normal, with that the cradle begins self-destructing, and Satu rushes to wake Mia up and asks her if she can stop the self-destruct sequence. Mia tells him she can try shutting down the self-destruct sequence. Satu gets her to the control systems, and Mia gives up as fast as it takes to drop from Maya hole she does. However, do some trial and error by pressing some random buttons, which seem to slow down the process a little bit with that. Out of the way, Satu thinks about a possible escape route that he can use to get the freak out of there. He realizes that he can warp out of the space with Mia. But, then again, what about the homunculi down there? What happens to them? Satu does a little more thinking and formulates a plan to save everyone. Once that's done, he sets a timer and takes Mia to the knocked-out homunculi. There. He then transports them all out of there and rushes to go save the green elf Girldrad, or whatever her name is, and number 7, whom he knocked out earlier, not without assuring Mia that he'd be back. Of course, once he's done warping them, Satu races downstairs and rescues homunculus number 7 to prevent her from getting crushed into a puddle of red ketchup. After that, he rushes over to the green girl's room and asks her to get them out of the tree before it's too late. However, the Dryad girl wanted some special seeds, and 3 times the MP she normally needs. Satu hands her everything she needs to make it work, and even kisses her wholeheartedly. After that, the elf girl happily teleports them out of the tree housing the cradle and rest. CZ after that, moments later, a tidal wave of salt pours out of the tree and sends chills down Satu's spine. He urges the elf girl to follow him to safety. But then again, Drad is good to go, as long as the forest is alive with this. Satu says goodbyes and dips out of there with the tidal salt wave coming in hot from behind. On his way to safety, Satu activates all the sprinting-related skills he has in his arsenal and races towards a water body, hoping to break the waves with it along the way, with his heart racing at 1,000 beats per minute. Atu runs on water in a flash. Just then, he remembers one of the lessons Arisa gave the girls back then about water and decides to use the concept there without hesitating. Satu conjures fireballs at the water and boils them up long, enough for them to turn to steam and slow the waves down. He quickly uses this chance to dip even faster than he originally did until he arrives somewhere safe. By morning, Satu returns to his master and finds everyone worried sick about him. Liza, Arisa, Pochi and Tama all cried their nipples out when they finally saw their beloved master. Back, Satu thinks about what the undead king told him about Arisa back before he lost his life. He'd advised Satu to make sure Arisa learned how to get her powers in check so that she didn't lose her way in the future. Satu takes him up on his promise and listens to Arisa cry along with the little kids. And soon Lulu, when they're done wailing, Mia officially thanks Satuin, her tradition, and expresses her deepest gratitude to the little dude for helping her out. Soon after, the Huli Satu rescued all came by to thank him for rescuing them, despite them being his enemies in the cradle, so lets them know that rescuing them is his pleasure, so they have nothing to worry about. As for their master, he gives them his ring and tells them to keep it safe as a reminder of the hardship their master had to endure at the hands of a wicked, fat dumbass. Noble the Hun, I bow down to Satu, their new master, and pledge their allegiance to him. Now, Arisa didn't like this development simply because she was jealous that they had a bigger chest than her. She was scared they were going to snatch her master away from her in no time. But she remained vigilant, moving on. One of the homunculi informed Satu of their mission to take their master's ring to his grave, while in the meantime, they can leave one of them with him to keep him company to decide who gets to stay. All the homunculi play a game of rock, paper, scissors and choose the most endowed one to stay behind later on. Mi says goodbye to M, the wearer rat, who helped her as she watches him return to his land. On returning to the city, Satu gets to the military station nearby. Ond reports his findings to him with a few lees. Of course, soon Xena shows up with tears on her face and cries her 32 out when she realizes that her man is fine. Soon enough, she cuts the act and discusses a few things with her man like a normal person. Satu gives her a gift and she accepts it with her entire heart. Then, Satu breaks the bad news to her, telling her that he's been given a mission to take Mia back to her hometown a few hundred miles from where they are. Hearing this, Xena is surprised and asks Satu if he plans on returning to Thessity. Satu promises to get back to Thessity and tell her amazing stories of his travels, and they make a pinky promise too. that soon everyone straps up and prepares themselves for the long journey. Uni gives Tama and Pucci some of the gifts she made them and makes them promise to use them wisely, with that everyone leaves just before they leave the city completely. Xena shows up on her horse and catches up to Satu and the others after stopping them. She begs him to wait till spring so that she can do whatever she wants and join them on their amazing adventures. Satu longs for her as he waves her goodbye. Arisa Drosha, master back to the cart and tells him not to worry too much about Xena since he has them. Just then, the homunculus following them pulls Satu to her chest and rests his head on her breast so he can calm down and think properly. After traveling for hours, Satu and his people decide to settle down and have a hearty lunch. They serve themselves a meat dish with lots of sides and veggies and pray to their creator. Before munching down some meat sayu, after taking a bite out of the food notices the deliciousness in the food and commends both Lulu, Liza and Nana for coming up with such an amazing dish. Given the short time they were provided, while eating, Satu notices just how hesitant Mia is to eat her meat. He asks her about it and she tells him it's against her tradition to eat meat. This means my vegan teacher must have been an elf in her past life. Anyways, Arisa catches on to this and jokes about Arisa's hate for meat. Satu diffuses the situation quickly and continues eating his food. Once everyone's done eating, they all prepare to get back on their journey. Satu notices Liza preparing some type of jerky nearby and asks her not to worry much about them eating. More Liza, however, tells her boss not to worry about that and that she's only cooking it for them to nibble on their journey. Arisa shows up shortly and conjures an item box from her inventory. Surprised, Satu checks out her item box and realizes that it's quite different from his. Not only that, he realizes that it also requires MP to operate hell. No, before Satu can say anything, Liza finishes her dish and stores it in Arisa's item box. Satu looks away and keeps on checking out the several perks she's acquired over time. From the looks of things, it seems like our loser is already getting used to being in the new parallel world where he gets all the chicks by their you guys completed in the comments. So moments later, Satu gathers everybody and urges them to do. Then again, the shop owner tells him that someone already bought her entire stock. Earlier, Satu remembers the two dudes who went out earlier and keeps his mouth shut. The shop owner then advises him to check the native kiln and buy from them directly if he needs them urgently. Satu leaves the shop and sends Liza back to the camp to help the others while he does his thing alone after she's gone. Satu waits till nightfall before he carries out his plan. Once the darkness arrives, he takes out the scrolls he bought earlier and activates all 4 of them to guide him on his way through the blank spaces in the forest. Satu treads carefully as he approaches the space where time ceases to exist. Then, without a care in the world, he enters the other side of what looks like a barrier. On the other side, his map suddenly unlocks the blank parts of the map and reveals several golem warriors, led by a witch coming his way. Before he could gather his thoughts, the little witch and her golem army show up and attack Satu with all they've got. As expected, Satu defends himself against all of them and tries to talk some sense to the little girl. Soon as enough, her master, the OG witch of the Forest of Illusions, shows up and pays her respects to Satu, confused over what just happened. Satu decides to play along and follows her to her building. After settling down, the witch officially welcomes him to her abode and apologizes greatly for her apprentice's stupidity. Satu keeps wondering why the witch was respecting him so just. Then he finds out that the witch saw the bell that M gave him earlier, which represented the Binan household. With this in him, Mana, the apprentice girl, shows up and bows her head to apologize for her actions. Earlier, Satu accepts her apologies and manages to impress even the witch herself. He also makes one thing clear, and that's the fact that he's not Bian's emissary like she thinks he is. After the formal introductions, the witch takes Satu to their potion production floor to make him watch the potion production. While at it, she mentions something about a pact with Count Kahanuth, the Count of Nuki Land, and this makes Satu quite curious. He asks her for the details, and she tells him that they always deliver about 300 vials of high-quality potions to the Count twice every year to show their appreciation to the Count for keeping hunters and outlaws away from the Forest of Illusions, aka the Forest Satu wandered into. Earlier, Satu asked her to teach him a recipe for preparing a good potion, and she does in due time after his lessons. Satu gets ready to get back to his people. The witch bids him farewell and asks if she could send some of her people to guide Satu on his way home. Satu tells her he's doing just fine, but she still helps him find his way back home by illuminating the best path there is. Satu thanks her immensely for the help and runs along the white glowing lines to get back to Nuki. Once he's out of the forest, he checks out an item he got from the witch and speaks out his intentions towards the object moments later. He turns home and gets a very huge scolding from Arisa for coming home that late in the night. Nevertheless, Satu sees himself in and settles with other commoners, drinking in the pub. There, he eavesdrops on a very weird conversation between two men. In cloaks, one of them was talking about a delivery that should have been in by now, and the other tells him to plan carefully so he can sabotage the delivery and become Count of Thessity or so before Satu could make out what they meant. The kill owner showed up to talk about the vile produce and stuff. While he discusses, Satu continues listening to the two creepy men. But then again, the annoying Arisa interrupts his peaceful session to remind him that it's well past his bedtime at this point. Satu was dragged all the way home to prevent him from falling asleep with the pub owner again. The next morning, Satu senses something awful happening to N, the witch's apprentice, as she is racing a little bit too fast to get to the town. He instructs his people on what to do, and they all rush to check out what is happening. On getting there, they find some bandits trying to sabotage the delivery of the biannual potion deliveries. Satu tries his best to stop the bandits and sends Ai running into the town's gates. There she finds two people waiting for her and crashes into the trap they set for her. Eni loses about 180 potions that instant and runs the risk of failing to deliver the potions. She lets out a scream and despairs over what to do now that she's lost the potion. Satu arrives there and tells his people to go after the people who set the trap, while he and Arisa count the potions remaining to be 120. He advises them to deliver the ones remaining while they figure out what to do with the ones that are destroyed. With that, they head to the Count Assistant office, whose name is Birkin. Standing by his side is Dawson. His aide Sacha recognizes the two guys from somewhere, but he couldn't figure out where he heard them before anyways. Arisa tries to explain the situation, but Birkin doesn't want to hear anything. Satu takes over calmly and explains everything that happened that evening. After listening to Birkin, Satu discovered that he wanted the delivery to fail. Just then, his brain suddenly starts working, and he remembers that the guy is the one in the cloak from the pub the other night. Satu tells them about the details of the packer and promises to deliver all 300 potions before sundown. If he can authorize their making of the potions, Perkins tells him he will accept the delivery of the potions if they are of the same quality as the witches. With this, Satu asks to put it in writing, so he doesn't go back on his word. Perkins, who knows they can't get it done in time, signs the agreement and lets them go do their thing. On getting outside, Satu has his girls get the ingredients for making the potions and tells Satu about the vials. They need to make the potions last, and Satu then remembers the person who bought all the vials in the alchemy market the other time. Now he has his work cut out for him, but what can he do to beat the time and deliver the potions without failing the first place? Satu gets to is the kill. Heffen's the owner of the kill and explains his predicament to the man. The owner is very surprised to hear such demands from Satu, as he tells him that it will be almost impossible to get such a task done in due time. Nevertheless, he still agrees to make the vials for them, as per his promise earlier. With this, Satu and his girls get to work on making thievials for the potions in earnest. Firstly, they all get down to molding the vials themselves, but after some time, a starts making weird as sus sounds that made USA little tingly. When more screen time is dedicated to her, we find out that she is only messing with the soft clay vials that she just made. The others continue, trying their hardest to get the exact shape of the vial, but unfortunately, none of them could get the hang of the shapes. Suddenly, everyone's sights shift to Satu, the weird man, who had already made more than a dozen vials despite him claiming to be his first time doing this after just an hour or so of molding the crew, finished the entire 108 vials they needed to complete the delivery. Now comes the hard part, drying. Up the vials in the kiln till they harden and hold their shape. The kiln owner tells them 5 days to a month should be enough to get the kiln dried up, but they don't have the time to wait that long. Knowing this saturates his last brain cells to figure out how he can remove the moisture from the vials without breaking them. He takes out his book of alchemy and checks for spells that will help him dry moisture after singling them out. He teaches Maya and has her dry the first vial. The Kelowna's face lights up with joy as he encourages the others to get working and produce as many vials as they can before loading up the kiln in a few hours. They get the vials in the kiln, all while completing the production of the magic potion, all on time after drying up every moisture molecule in the vials. The kiln owner advises them all to wait for a few hours for them to cool down so that they can complete their delivery by sundown. While they wait, a weird creature pops out of A's head and Satu reads it to Bae, Puff Bird, before he can find out more information about the bird. Dosun and his goons show up at the kiln and deem it illegal to make potion vials without permission from the Count. From the goofy look on Sat's face, he could already predict where this was going, so he does a little magic trick with his hand and somehow does something to protect the vials. Dosun and his goons finish discussing all they can with the Kylona before they finally decide to destroy the kiln in a bid to sabotage the making of the vials. Dosun and his goons break down the kiln and leave the huge hunk of clay oven useless for a while. After they're gone, Satu apologizes for the kiln owner's demise and asks him to give them some time alone. Once he's gone, Satu asks if they can use the bird to send a message to the witch. Ani, who was crying her heart out, stops crying and allows Satu to do his thing after sending the letter. Arisa and the others find out that the vials Dosun and his people broke earlier were the fake Satu created. In the event of something like that happening, Arisa is shocked by the intuition her master has, and this makes him look hotter to her even better. Satu lets her know that he got the idea from her item box idea and made something much better than hers. Moving on, they all get down to taking out the vials and drying them using some magic. Sadly, the vial broke and Satu thinks of another way to get the vials dry without raising the temperature too rapidly. After ruminating for a little while, he comes up with something and decides to use a loud gush of hot air to slowly absorb the remaining moisture from the vial. Since he's done, Satu and Arisa both get out of the kiln to announce the good news. To them, everyone rejoices once they all hear that the vials will be ready before sundown. After twilight, Satu and some of the others all get back to meet Birkins there. He receives them warmly, hoping for them to admit defeat and surrender to the Count. To his surprise, Satu was there to kick him in the nutsack and obliterate all hope of his plan. Counting, he even asked them to leave the city, now that they can get the vials done in time. However, Satu cuts his dirty mouth shut from spitting more gunk out and lets him know that they've completed the order. He brings forward the delivery note and asks him to sign it. At this point, Dosun freaks out and asks Satu for the trick that he used to get this done in time. Birkin checks the authenticity of the potions with his men, and they all affirm that the potion is good to go. Now, all that remains is for him to sign the note so they can seal the deal. B gets up from his seat for the first time and faces the window as if he is thinking of doing something terrible. Satu asks him more time if he's going to sign it. Before Birkins could answer, Count Kahanu himself showed up to sign the delivery note. For Satu, Birkins faces him and asks Kahanu how he knew about the delivery. The Count lets out his disappointment about Birkin, his actions. He revokes Birkin as Viceroy's ship and banishes him from the palace with nothing to lose. Now, Birkins decides to play one last dirty trick, and he does this by chanting a spell of destruction that the Count himself created. The man stands strong and counters the hit, since he knows it can't ever affect him. Then he takes out his sword and prepares himself to behead the idiot who couldn't take an L. However, Satu rushes in and knocks him the freak out before the Count creates angry picture for the kids. After the hubbub, the kill owner gets a bigger kill than he had before and expands his business, courtesy of the Count also. And the witch gives Satu a magic lantern or lamp and some nice new magic spell. With that everyone part ways and continue on their journeys. The next morning, Nana gets close to her master and removes her clothing to expose her pristine shape to her master. Now that he's no longer a virgin, Satu understands the mission, and he tries to touch Nana's melons. However, Arisa, who's a busybody, as usual finds them and stops him from touching Nana's boobs. She causes a very huge ruckus that nearly topples the entire cart upside down. Then she asks Satu for an explanation, and he tells him that he's only trying to calibrate Nana's foundation system, knowing fully well that Satu is about to do some calibrating. Arisa senses something very fishy and asks him to clarify himself. Nana further explains that her magic manipulation function is a little faulty and would need external help from her master to get it up and running. Satu asks her what he's to do, and she tells him to place his hand near her heart and redirect the magic flow into her system. Mia comes in on time and tells their master to use Nana's back to reach her heart. Instead of her boobs, Satu place his hands on Nana's back and directs the magic inflow to her back. Moments later, Lisa shows up to greet her master before asking him what he plans on doing. For that day later on, they begin their journey, and Satu gets himself ready to pass near the Mu. Barony around that time in Seru, Xena rushes back to her colleagues to show them the letter she got from Satu. She opens it and reads it to her colleagues, who are unimpressed by the wording in the letter. Xena, on the other hand, was very happy to finally hear from her Prince Charming. Meanwhile, Satu and his people stop to eat and have some tea there. Liza and Poi show up with a rare thorny plant and ask Satu to let them eat it because it smells sweet. Satu handles the plant and breaks it in half, exposing the sweet sap from it. He tastes the sap and realizes that it's sweet. Then he sticks his hand out for the little kids to lick from. When he's done, Arisa tries to pull a fast one on him, but then Satu doesn't let her get away. That night, Xena reads Sat's letter one more time before she goes to sleep. In the meantime, Satu reads the kids and everyone a wonderful story about a world tree of gods and deities. He narrates a long story that didn't seem too interesting. At the time, however, it was enough to bore the girls to sleep. By the time he's done with his story, he finds the girls already asleep and decides to call it a day. Xena also finishes reading the letter and promises to get to Satu one day. The next morning, Satu wakes up in the middle of girls and gets very scared when he finds countless melons stroking his face. Everyone wakes up soon, and he compliments them all. Soon enough, everyone gets off the cart to start their day.